So I saw this a lot being chatted. Look, would I've liked to have seen more from the starters? Certainly. I mean, again, but every team handles their starters differently, right? I mean, every team is going to handle. I mean, we're going to see Ron, in the final preseason game. He's going to make his Jets debut and all. Every team handles their starters differently. Did we see enough out of the starters? Do we have enough confidence? Look, again, we've been down this road before. Well, Matt and Julio got to get on the same page. And look, if you practice well, you'll play well. I mean, that's an old football mantra and narrative that has always been true. If you practice well, you'll play well. So I'm not worried about we need to see more of Desmond Ridder throw the football around or turn and hand off just for the sake of making you feel good. Again, that's the whole thing is this is all about what the fans want and what the fans have to see to feel good. But these guys are out there practicing every single day, and they're getting into a rhythm, and they're establishing synchronicity or with guys. I mean, they're getting in sync with one another. They're obviously, they're out there every day working on things to get better. So again, I don't have a concern with, do I want to see more or do I have to see more to feel good about what the Falcons are? Either we're going to establish ourselves right out of the gate or we're not. Let's face it, we don't exactly have the toughest opener. It ain't like we're taking on the Chefs or the Bungles or, one of the best teams in the NFL week one. We're going to take on the Carolina Panthers, who have a rookie quarterback that, again, is what he is. I mean, he's the number one pick, and we'll see what he can do. And they have a good defense, and we know all about them, But again, we'll either line up and, win come week one or we won't. And it won't be because Desmond Ridder didn't make enough plays or enough games, snaps, in the preseason or, starting or whatever. Like that narrative, is always just kind of, I don't know. When I hear these things, that's a fan thing. Well, we need to see more out of our starters and they need to play longer. Well, that's not what they're going to do in the NFL. Like they're not giving what the fans what they want. Arthur Smith is not going to trot his quarterback out there for an extended period of time and risk the idea of him getting hurt or his starters getting hurt. Again, the worst thing you can do is in preseason, see your guy go down, whatever your guy is, your guy go down and then, be out an extended period of time. And these guys fear that, and again, they don't hit all the time in practice anymore, right? So they don't get their body acclimated to, taking a lot of hits and absorbing things and two-a-days and all this kind of stuff. I mean, the players union has negotiated away practices. So again, you have to work these guys in at your pace and not just throw them out to the wolves and hope for the best, out of all of it. So again, do I think the starters did enough? Yeah, I was impressed with what the starting offense did. They controlled the clock. They ate up a lot of time against the Bungles. The only thing I said, I would have liked to have seen them close the deal, on it. But other than that, I thought they got done what they needed to get done. And if we don't see another starter play, and again, part of this will be roster bubble guys, again, the Jalen Mayfields of the world. Maybe we see Matthew Bergeron, who's now listed on the depth chart as the starting left guard. Maybe he gets some work in. But by and large, if we don't see any of our starters come this third preseason game, I'm not going to be upset with that. That's just life in the NFL. Every coach has their way of doing things. Now that we have a 3-game, it used to be in the old days, is that you could kind of navigate your way through a 4-game preseason schedule and know exactly what was going to happen. Starters would barely play in week 1. There'd be a little bit more ramp up in week 2. Game 3 was a dress rehearsal. And then game 4 was for everybody who needs to make the roster. Now with this 3-game preseason, and again, that's all been negotiated between the owners and the players union, that there's one less preseason game, but one more regular season game, we don't have as much of a feel for what starters in the NFL are going to do or how their schedule is going to be. Like I said, Aaron is going to play on his final preseason game. This will be his first chance to play in the preseason. Again, do the Jets need to evaluate Aaron to know what they've gotten him? Of course not. That whole notion is ridiculous. And again, you think if he plays a quarter, that all of a sudden the magic light bulb comes on and he establishes all these connections with his guys? Of course not. Same thing with Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder is not suddenly going to magically kind of create this chemistry between himself and Drake London and Kyle Pitts. That all happens through practice. That happens, Monday through Friday in the practices and this, that, and the other. And again, they've negotiated so many of the practices away that it's not like you get 2 a day. That's why those practices in Miami are so valuable. That's the thing that's valuable. The game wasn't valuable. The preseason games are valuable. Let me see what you do in practice. Let me put you in situational football, and let me see how you respond to that. So again, I'm more impressed with what we did in our practices in the takeaway from Miami as to whether or not we've seen enough of Desmond Ridder in the preseason. That's a fan thing. What I personally have liked to see more, sure. I like seeing our guys. I feel for people who attended the game that if you're paying full fare, you want to see more of your starters. I get that. I understand that from a fan perspective. But from a coaching perspective and an organizational perspective and all these other kinds of things, if that's the only thing that we see, we can't go into week one and start blaming, the lack of chemistry on not playing enough in the preseason. That's a tired narrative and a tired trope. It's been used before to talk about Matt and Julio not being on the same page in the preseason, and yet those guys are one of the most prolific, quarterback wide receiver duos, in football history. It's all a bunch of nonsense. We've seen enough. Let's get to week one. Let's not get anybody hurt, and we get to week one, and let's see what we've got from there. All right, as you listen into Hittin' Hard, make sure you go into whatever podcast platform that you're listening on and let us know that you're an everyday listener to the show. So we thank you so much for being a part of our growing community, but let us know that you listen in 5 days a week to the program on whatever podcast platform that you listen on. Leave a comment for us there.